You ever feel like you're just background noise in your own family? Like if you disappeared tomorrow, the only reason anyone would notice is because dinner got quieter? That's what growing up felt like for me. I'm Marla. I'm 34 now. But back then, I was just the older daughter, the reliable one, the she'll be fine kid. And my little sister, Katie, she was the one the sun rose and set on. We were born 3 years apart. Same house, same parents, completely different worlds. Katie was delicate, dramatic, the kind of girl who cried over the wrong color birthday balloon and somehow got a new party out of it. My mom used to say she was sensitive. I learned early that being loud about what you wanted got you places. I wasn't loud. I was tired. By the time I hit 17, I was working 2 jobs, cleaning motel rooms in the morning and bagging groceries at night, just to squirrel away enough for college. Katie? She dropped out of high school halfway through her junior year because of stress. My parents didn't just forgive her. They sent her to some beauty school in Florida like it was some damn spa retreat. They said, she needs a fresh start. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and packed my own bags for community college 2 towns over. I didn't resent her. Not really. She was my sister. She made me laugh sometimes. We'd share dumb jokes over cereal and sing in the car when she let me drive her places. But I always knew, deep down, that if the house was on fire and they could only pull one of us out, I'd be the one left behind. I met Joel at the food co-op I worked at during college. He was sweet in a quiet way, the kind of guy who remembered how I took my coffee before I realized I needed caffeine at all. He wasn't flashy. He worked construction, read fantasy novels, and laughed like he hadn't been allowed to as a kid. Being with him made me feel calm, safe. Like maybe I didn't have to prove myself all the time just to be seen. We got married in a simple backyard ceremony. My parents didn't offer to pay for anything. Said they were saving up in case Katie wanted to go back to school someday. Katie didn't come to the wedding. She was on a cruise with some guy she'd met online. Joel and I bought a little house just outside town. Nothing fancy, but it had a peach tree in the back and a creaky porch swing that became our favorite spot in the world. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had something no one could take from me. I didn't care that I wasn't the golden child. I had Joel. I had peace. When Katie came back to town 2 years later, I welcomed her. Honest to God, I did. She'd broken up with some boyfriend and needed a place to crash while she figured things out. Joel thought it was a bad idea. "She's not like you," he said once, folding laundry beside me. "She never brings peace." But she was my sister, and my parents acted like it was the least I could do. So she moved into our guest room for a couple weeks. Those weeks turned into months. At first, it was little things. She'd hang around the kitchen when Joel was cooking, asking too many questions. She'd borrow my clothes without asking, even my wedding dress shoes, and then act like I was overreacting when I asked her not to. She called Joel Jay, like they were old pals, and once I caught her showing him pictures of her in a bikini from that cruise she'd ditched my wedding for. But the moment I remember the most, the moment I stopped brushing things off, was a Sunday morning. Joel made pancakes like he always did, and I came downstairs to find Katie sitting on the counter in one of his t-shirts. Not mine, his. Her legs swinging, her hair wet from the shower, laughing like she owned the damn place. Joel didn't even notice. Or maybe he did. I don't know which is worse. I went back upstairs, locked the door, sat on the floor and tried to breathe. I told myself it was in my head, that I was tired, that I was being paranoid. But then came the family dinner. My dad grilled steaks, my mom brought her church casserole. We all sat around the old oak table like we were still pretending to be a happy family. And that's when Katie stood up, wine glass in hand, eyes glossy and smug. "I have an announcement," she said, resting one hand on her stomach. "Joel and I are having a baby." I laughed. I swear to God I laughed. Because it had to be a joke, a sick one, some twisted Katie-style prank. But Joel didn't deny it. And that's when I realized this wasn't the moment my life shattered. That had already happened. This was just the moment I finally saw the cracks. I didn't cry that night. I just sat there, hands in my lap, staring at the chipped edge of my mom's dining table while everyone else passed around mashed potatoes like nothing had happened. No one looked at me. Not even Joel. Especially not Joel. Katie smiled like she'd won something. Like I should be happy for her. She rested one hand on her stomach in that smug way people do when they're showing off a brand new car or an engagement ring. When I finally stood up, my mom touched my wrist and said, "Marla, please don't make this about you." That broke something in me. Not just her words, God knows I was used to those, but the way she said it. Calm, almost bored. Like I was being dramatic for reacting like a normal human being who'd just been gutted in front of a casserole dish. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my wine glass. I just walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove. No plan, no destination, just the sound of my tires on gravel and the pounding of my heart in my ears. I ended up parked outside a gas station 20 miles away, crying into my coat sleeve while a stray cat rubbed against my car tire. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Joel had texted me once. "We didn't mean for it to happen like this." That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, let's talk. Just damage control. The next day, I went back to the house, grabbed what I could carry in 3 duffel bags, and left. He didn't stop me. He wasn't even there. It's funny how quiet betrayal is. You think it'll feel like a knife, like fire, like your world ending in a flash. But no, it's a slow, cold silence. It's brushing your teeth next to someone who's already halfway gone. It's smiling at family dinners while your gut tells you something's wrong, and no one else cares enough to ask. I called my mom that night. I didn't want comfort. I knew better, but I guess I hoped for basic human decency. Maybe even just a bed for the night. She sighed before I could even finish talking. "Katie's not the villain here, Marla. You and Joel had problems long before she came back." I asked her, "So this is my fault?" She said, "Don't twist my words, honey. We're just trying to move forward as a family." A family. That word used to mean something. Over the next few weeks, I stayed on a friend's couch, bounced around between motels, and tried to find a rhythm again. But I couldn't sleep. Couldn't think straight. I kept replaying everything. Every laugh Katie shared with Joel. Every joke my parents made about me being so independent. It was like I'd been set up to be the expendable one from the start. And people noticed, you know? The looks at the grocery store. The whispers. Small-town life doesn't let scandals go quietly. I was the one whose sister stole her husband. That was my title now. I avoided Katie's name like it was poison. Even when people brought her up, I'd nod and pretend I didn't care. But inside, I was boiling. And the worst part? I still loved her. Somewhere, deep down, I missed the kid who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms, who made me laugh so hard we'd pee our pants on the trampoline. I hated her, but I missed her. That was the real mindfuck. About 2 months after the dinner, Joel filed for divorce. We didn't talk. I signed whatever papers he sent through his lawyer. No apology. No explanation. Just finality, like we'd been strangers all along. Then came the real blow. I got a call from the HR rep at the candle studio I'd been working at. I'd been there part-time for 2 years. Helped develop a few bestsellers, even trained some of the new hires. But now? We're restructuring, she said. It's not personal. Of course it wasn't. Later that day, a coworker messaged me privately. "You didn't hear this from me," she wrote, "but Joel told management you were unstable, said you'd been showing up erratic, distracted, and making the workspace uncomfortable." I stared at that message for so long my phone went dim. He took my sister. He took my home. And now he wanted to take the only thing I had left. My name. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. But I sat in my car that night outside the studio, fists clenched on the steering wheel, and I made myself a promise. I wouldn't just move on. I'd build something they couldn't touch. Something too strong, too bright, too untouchable. I'd make damn sure they'd regret ever thinking I was disposable. But what I didn't know then was that Katie wasn't just pregnant. She was lying. I wish I could say I bounced back right away. That I wiped my tears, stood up, and dove into my next chapter like some damn Hallmark movie. But that's not what happened. What happened was nothing. For a while, nothing. I moved into a month-to-month studio with cracked tile floors and a leaking sink. I couldn't sleep without triple-checking the lock on the door. Every time I heard footsteps in the hallway, I thought it was Katie, or Joel, or worse, my mom. Because I wasn't just mourning a marriage, I was grieving my own invisibility. The silence from my family after the divorce was deafening. I didn't get one phone call, not one message asking if I was okay. Meanwhile, Katie posted sonograms on Facebook like she was Mother of the Year, tagging Joel in every caption with "Our Miracle." My parents left heart emojis. My aunt shared it and wrote, "So proud of these two. Real love always finds its way." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I scrolled, I stared, and then I logged off. Instead, I went quiet. Really quiet. Because sometimes when your whole life goes up in flames, the only thing left is what you build out of the ashes. I still had my formula journal. The one where I used to write fragrance ideas, mostly just doodles and half-thoughts. One night, I found it stuffed in a moving box I hadn't unpacked. I flipped through it while sitting on the floor with a bag of half-stale pretzels, and something in me cracked open. That was the first time I let myself imagine a world where I didn't just survive. I thrived. I applied for a microloan, just enough to buy a hot plate, a scale, a few essential oils, and a shelf's worth of glass bottles. I mixed in the kitchen, tested formulas on scraps of notebook paper, burned my hand on melted wax, spilled sandalwood all over my mattress. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. I started small. A pop-up table at the Sunday farmer's market right next to a woman selling goat cheese and an old man who carved spoons. The first Sunday, I made $32. The next, $58. By the third week, a woman in a big sun hat leaned in, sniffed my newest blend, and whispered, "This smells like my childhood. Where can I buy more?" That night, I launched my Etsy store from a library computer. I named it Ashlight, because that's what it felt like. Building light out of what got burned down. Sales trickled in, then picked up, then exploded. Someone posted a review on TikTok, and suddenly I had orders from Denver to Boston. I moved my workspace from my kitchen to a tiny corner studio near the river. It wasn't much, but when I turned the key for the first time, I cried like a baby. The first time I saw Ashlight mentioned in a local magazine, I almost didn't recognize the name. They called me a quiet innovator in fragrance. I'd been invisible for so long, it was surreal seeing myself in print. And just when I finally started to breathe again, just when I felt like I was reclaiming something that had been mine all along, Katie showed up. It was a Wednesday. Cold, wet, sky like cement. I was in the middle of organizing shipments when the bell over the studio door jingled. I didn't even look up at first. "Marla?" My hands froze. I turned around. There she was, holding a baby. She looked awful. Not in the petty way, but like life had been chewing her up slowly. Dark circles, cracked lips, that hollow look you only see in people who stop pretending everything's fine. The baby looked, well, like a baby. Big brown eyes, sleepy, innocent. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice shaking. I said nothing, just stared. She told me Joel left her 2 weeks after the baby was born. Took the car. Canceled the joint account. Said he couldn't do it anymore. She was living in a friend's guest room, running out of money, no job, no one else to call. "You're all I have left," she said. I couldn't believe the gall. The girl who nuked my life now stood in my studio, begging for help. "You have some nerve," I said quietly. She started crying. Real tears, maybe. But I wasn't moved. Then she said it. the thing that made everything go silent again. Joel isn't the father. The words didn't land at first. What? I said. She looked down, rocked the baby gently. I lied. I was already pregnant when Joel and I happened. It wasn't his. He knew. But he stayed because he thought it made him look like a better man. A family man. My stomach turned. All this time, Joel knew the baby wasn't his. He married into her mess knowing exactly what he was doing. He just wanted to play savior. And I was the collateral. I leaned against the wall. The world tilted. That was the twist. Not just that they betrayed me, but that they used me to wash their own guilt away. That's when I realized this wasn't over. When she said the baby wasn't Joel's, my mind didn't immediately go to shock. It went to strategy. I stood there, staring at her as she rocked that child like it could erase everything she'd done. She didn't flinch. She didn't explain. Just stood in the middle of my studio like I owed her a hug for finally telling the truth. Like that confession made us even. It didn't. I let her talk. Or more like ramble. About how scared she was. How she made a mistake. How Joel promised to raise the baby if she just gave him a clean slate to be the better man. How she thought she could handle it all until he snapped one day and walked out. She said she had nowhere else to go. No job. No apartment. No car. Just the baby and a suitcase full of designer clothes she hadn't sold yet. I didn't ask what happened to all the people who cheered her on while she was blowing up my life. I already knew. They vanished the second she stopped being shiny. So yeah, I let her stay. In my guest room. The one I'd used to store extra shipping boxes and broken candle jars. I moved things around, gave her fresh sheets, and handed her a spare key. But let me be clear. I didn't do it for her. I did it for me. I wanted to see how far she'd fall when there was no one left to lie to. At first, she tiptoed around like she was afraid I'd snap. She'd say thank you too often, clean dishes that weren't hers, fold my laundry. I didn't buy it. Katie never cleaned anything in her life unless she was about to ask for something. The baby, Ben, was quiet. I'll give him that. Big brown eyes, always watching. Never cried much. He'd stare at me when I worked, like he was trying to figure me out. Sometimes I'd stare back, wondering how someone so innocent came from something so rotten. A week in, she asked if she could help in the studio. I can learn, she said. I just need a chance. I gave her one. I showed her how to measure oils, how to label tins, how to organize inventory. Nothing creative, nothing important. Just the grunt work. She acted grateful, said she was learning so much, said she wanted to rebuild, said she wanted to be more like me. Every time she said that, I had to bite my tongue. Because here's the thing. You can't be like me when you spent your whole life trying to erase me. But I let her talk, let her play house, let her think we were healing. And then one afternoon, she asked if I could pick Ben up from daycare. It's just down the street, she said. I have a therapy appointment. Please. I didn't ask why she was seeing a therapist. I just said yes, because for the first time in my life, I had the upper hand. And it felt good. Better than I cared to admit. So I picked up Ben, carried him back home, warmed up a bottle. He fell asleep in my arms. For a second, I felt something close to peace. Until I checked my email. There it was. A message from my supplier, flagged urgent. Attached were screenshots, private messages from my business account. Someone had reached out under my name, requesting new scent formulas and claiming I was transitioning ownership. They even attached a fake business license, with Katie's name on it. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my laptop. I just stared at that email while my blood turned to ice. She wasn't here to rebuild. She was here to steal, again. I put Ben in his crib, walked into the studio, and found her sitting at my desk like she owned it. She was going through invoices, my invoices, touching my work like it was hers. I said, "What the hell are you doing?" She jumped, tried to play it off. "Oh, I was just organizing—" "Cut the shit," I said. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" She blinked. "Marla, I don't know what you're talking about." "I saw the emails, Katie. The fake license. You tried to transfer supplier rights to your name." She froze. Then her face changed. Not scared. Not sorry. Just cold. "You built this on pain that I gave you. You owe me something." That sentence. That one goddamn sentence. It snapped whatever restraint I had left. "I owe you?" I laughed. "I gave you a roof. I gave you a second chance. And you tried to gut me again." She stood up, chin high. "I did what I had to do. I have a kid now." And that's when it clicked. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Katie, I know who the father is." Her face turned pale. I'd seen a photo a few nights before. Katie drunk, clinging to a man in a leather jacket at some concert. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Until now. "You're gonna pack your things," I said, calm as ever. "And tomorrow you're going to meet me at a place I've scheduled. We're getting a paternity test." She didn't answer, just stood there, trembling. I walked past her, picked up Ben, and whispered, "Don't worry, baby. We'll make sure the right people know who you belong to." Katie didn't show up the next morning. Not to the clinic. Not to the house. She vanished. I waited 2 hours in that little waiting room with the soft gray walls and the fake potted plant next to the coffee machine. I held Ben in my arms while a nurse quietly brought him a juice box and asked me if I was okay. I lied and said I was fine. She didn't even have the decency to call. I drove back home. Well, my home, and found her room empty. Bed stripped, suitcase gone. The only thing she left behind was a single bottle of Ashlight perfume with the label half peeled off. The one she'd tried to repackage under her name. I tossed it in the trash without a second thought. At first I panicked. Not because I missed her, but because Ben was still with me. She'd left her baby. I tried her phone. Disconnected. I emailed. Nothing. I called my mother. Her voice cracked before I said anything. "Marla, please don't do anything rash." That's when it hit me. She knew. "Katie's staying with you, isn't she?" Silence. "She left her baby here, Mom." "Did she even tell you that?" Then my mom, in that soft, breathy tone she always used when guilt was closing in, said, "She thought you'd be better equipped to take care of him." That was the moment I realized I'd been wrong this whole time. I thought they abandoned me for Katie. But the truth was worse. They never really chose either of us. They just kept enabling whichever one caused the least inconvenience to themselves. "She's not well, Marla," my mom whispered, like that made it better. "She's been under so much pressure." "And I haven't," I said. "You watched her take everything from me. You helped her hide, and now you're helping her run." I hung up before she could answer. I hired a lawyer the next day. Not for revenge. For Ben. Because Katie didn't just betray me. She abandoned her son. And if she ever decided to crawl back into his life years later with more chaos in her pocket, I wasn't going to let that door be left open. I filed for temporary guardianship first. It wasn't easy. There were interviews, inspections, questions about whether I was doing this out of spite. I kept it together. I stayed calm. I showed them everything I'd built. I showed them Ben's room, his doctor's records, his daycare schedule. I even played a video of him giggling at the scent of vanilla oil. 3 months later, it was official. I was his legal guardian. He started calling me Mama not long after that. I never asked him to. I never corrected him either. Meanwhile, things got quiet. Too quiet. Until the day I got a knock at the studio door. It was a woman in a blazer, hair pinned tight, eyes unreadable. She handed me an envelope. Inside, court papers. Katie was suing for custody. Apparently, after getting kicked out of my parents' condo for stealing from their retirement account, yeah, that happened. She moved 2 states over and got picked up for shoplifting. Somehow, in that delusional head of hers, suing me was going to fix her life. What she didn't know was that her ex-boyfriend, the real father of Ben, had already reached out. He'd seen my Etsy page blow up on TikTok and recognized Katie's face in a photo. He didn't want custody, didn't even want contact. But he signed an affidavit confirming everything. Said she never told him about the baby until it was too late and he didn't want to be involved. I brought that to court. I brought everything. Emails, messages, photos, even a copy of her attempt to hijack my supplier account. The judge didn't even blink. Katie lost. Again. But the worst part for her wasn't the ruling. It was the silence in the courtroom after. No one stood up for her. Not Joel. Not our parents. Not even her own lawyer, who quietly packed his briefcase and left without saying a word. As for me, I walked out with Ben holding my hand, my head high, and a scent on my wrist I'd made just for that day. Bergamot, cedarwood, and the faintest trace of burnt rose petals. I called it closure. That night, I tucked Ben into bed and sat alone in the studio, watching the candlelight flicker against the jars on the shelf. Everything I'd built, everything they tried to destroy was still here. Still burning. You know, people think revenge has to be loud, explosive. But sometimes it's soft. Sometimes it's a quiet life you live on your own terms, one they can't take credit for, can't poison, can't touch. And sometimes, the sweetest justice is just becoming the kind of person they never thought you could be. If I've learned anything, it's this. Forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back in. Sometimes it means letting yourself walk out, without guilt, without looking back, and without offering explanations to people who never earned them. If you've been through something like this, or if you're in the middle of it now, tell your story in the comments. You're not alone, and you're not crazy for saying enough. And if you want to stick around for more real stories like this, you know what to do. But either way, thanks for listening. That alone means more than you know.